Hi everyone. For our physics final project, we chose to focus on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
What is the many worlds interpretation? The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is a theory that suggests every quantum event results in branching of the universe into multiple parallel universes. Instead of a single outcome occurring when a quantum system is observed, all possible outcomes happen, each in its own separate universe. So, a key point that I learned about this is that no wave function collapses. Unlike the Copenhagen interpretation, where the wave function collapses to a single outcome upon measurement, many worlds interpretation assumes the wave function never collapses. Implications. Reality is vast. The universe is unimaginably large, encompassing all possible versions of events. Quantum superposition. States that seem to be in superposition exist as distinct realities in different branches of the universe. Are there ways to demonstrate if this is the correct interpretation? One way we might show the many worlds interpretation is real is by looking for interference patterns. If we can measure how different branches of the wave function interact or overlap, it could suggest these branches actually exist. In theory, if we could see interference happening in large systems, not just tiny particles, it would be a strong hint that many worlds interpretation might be correct. It's like proving those other worlds have a small but real impact we can observe. Another demonstration of the many worlds interpretation would be using a coin flip, which would involve the idea that when you flip a coin, instead of just one outcome, like heads or tails, both possibilities actually occur, creating two separate universes. One where the coin landed on its head, and the other where it landed on its tail. With you existing in both universes simultaneously, experiencing only one of the outcomes depending on which universe you are in. As of today, there are no current definitive way to experimentally determine which interpretation of quantum mechanics work, including the many worlds interpretation. Philosophical impact of the many worlds interpretation. Nature of reality. Many worlds interpretation challenges the classical notion of a singular, objective reality by suggesting that all possible outcomes exist simultaneously in separate universes. Free will. If every decision leads to branching universes where all possible choices are realized, it challenges the concept of free will. Ethical considerations. If all outcomes exist, does that diminish the ethical weight of our choices? For example, if a harmful decision exists in one universe and beneficial in one another, how should we judge the morality of actions? So, I have a few more key points that I wanted to go over with this. Also, with identity and self, if there's like countless versions of you in other universes, it kind of raises the question, like, what does it really mean to be you? And like, do you have any individuality and stuff like that? If there's infinite versions of us, like, it raises the question of like who really are you? And another point by the many worlds interpretation is that it suggests a deterministic universe at the wave function level where all outcomes occur. However, it appears random to us because we experience only one branch, creating a paradox between determinism and perceived randomness. So these philosophical implications make the many worlds interpretation not only a scientific theory, but also a thought-provoking framework that challenges how we understand existence and our place in it.
The Copenhagen and many worlds interpretations are two fundamental approaches to understanding quantum mechanics. Both attempt to understand the strange behavior of quantum systems and seek to resolve the quantum measurement problem. The Copenhagen interpretation emerged during a revolutionary period in physics, developed by two of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg. In the 1920s, as quantum mechanics was taking shape, these scientists sought to understand the bizarre behavior of subatomic particles that seemed to defy classical physics. This interpretation suggests that quantum systems exist in a probable state of superposition until they are observed or measured. Superposition suggests that before a measurement, a quantum system exists in a state of multiple potential realities simultaneously. Imagine an electron that isn't in one specific location, but rather spread out across various probable positions. It is not that we don't know its location, it literally exists in multiple states at once. The Copenhagen interpretation suggests that when a measurement occurs, the wave function collapses into a single definite state. This has us understand that the moment of measurement is crucial. When an observer interacts with the quantum system, the wave of possibilities instantaneously collapses into a single definite state. This isn't just a limitation of our knowledge, but a fundamental property of quantum mechanics. Implications of the Copenhagen interpretation can include inherent uncertainty and the probable nature of quantum systems, and implies that quantum events are fundamentally random and interdeterminate before measurement. To finally compare and contrast the multi-worlds interpretation to the Copenhagen interpretation, I would like to begin with the key philosophical differences I have noted between the two interpretations. The first includes how we interpret the outcome of these two quantum measurements. First, the Copenhagen interpretation suggests that the outcome is a single and probable outcome, whereas the multi-worlds interpretation suggests that all possible outcomes are real and exist in different universes. The next key difference I would like to highlight is how we observe certain mechanisms within this measurement. The Copenhagen interpretation requires an observer to collapse the wave function, whereas in the multi-worlds theory, there is no special role for observation, due to the fact that all possibilities exist simultaneously within this multi-world theory. The final key philosophical difference I would like to highlight is how these two interpretations view reality differently. The Copenhagen interpretation maintains a more classical view of the world, and it's somewhat more familiar to us because we believe that there is one universe that exists at all times, whereas the multi-world interpretation proposes a radically different view. It suggests that there are parallel universes that hold possibilities of all outcomes of a certain situation. Although these two interpretations are very different, the most fascinating aspect is that these interpretations make exactly the same mathematical predictions. They are mathematically equivalent, differing only in their interpretation of what those equations mean. These interpretations are more than scientific theories. They are competing narratives about the nature of existence itself. They ask fundamental questions such as, is reality determined by observation? Do multiple realities exist simultaneously? And what does it mean to exist in the world if there are multiple realities? We stand to understand that a quantum realm that continues to challenge our most fundamental assumptions about reality, and the Copenhagen and multi-world interpretations reminds us that the edges of human knowledge that the universe is far more mysterious and far more fascinating than we can ever imagine.
Now, we can discuss more behind the backgrounds of the many worlds interpretation and dive a little bit deeper into its historical significance. At its conception, the many worlds interpretation was a PhD thesis of Hugh Everett III, an American physicist born in Washington, D.C. in 1930. Before this, he studied chemical engineering as an undergraduate and spent time researching game theory with the notable mathematician Albert W. Tucker, as his initial doctorate concentration at Princeton was mathematics rather than physics. No revolutionary idea has ever passed without facing criticism, and Everett was no stranger to this. In 1959, he visited Copenhagen to visit physicists Niels Bohr and Leon Rosenfield, Bohr being one of the minds behind the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. On this trip, Everett received insulting criticism from the two scientists, as both believed that nobody with a proper quantum mechanics background would oppose the Copenhagen interpretation. Aside from plain disagreement, Rosenfield went as far as to insult his intelligence, calling the many worlds interpretation undescribably stupid, and completely disregarded his thesis. Unlike the criticism he faced earlier in his career, time proved to be kind to Everett, as after recognition from articles in physics and science fiction publishings in the 1970s, he was asked to speak at the University of Texas, where his presentation received lots of positive feedback. This recognition would, along with the inclusion in many popular physics publishings, make the many worlds interpretation one of the most widely accepted quantum mechanics interpretations of today. Unfortunately, Everett would not reap the rewards of his hard work, as he passed away at the age of 51 from a heart attack. Currently, over 50% of physicists agree with the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In the wake of his death, Everett had asked his wife to throw his remains in the garbage, as his atheist philosophy discouraged the idea of an afterlife. She decided to keep his ashes against his best wishes, as her, along with his son, were angry with the way that Everett took care of himself, as they attributed his reliance on alcohol and cigarettes to the disappointment and stress of his life's work, causing his obesity and subsequent cardiac arrest. The many worlds interpretation has found its way into modern popular culture and has shown to be a great influence on many famous literal, cinematic, and other entertainment mediums, especially within the science fiction genre. Notable examples of MWI in pop culture include the Marvel Comics multiverse, as it's shown in Doctor Strange, Deadpool and Wolverine, The Avengers, Spider-Man, and other movies and comics. This relates to the many worlds interpretation, as the multiverse is a concept that there is a different version of every superhero in an alternate universe, whom has faced different adversities based on their life decisions, although they are all supposedly the same person. Another example of the MWI in pop culture is Star Trek's Mirror Universe, which is described to be a parallel universe where things seem to be the same but are slightly different, yet it exists at the same time as the real Star Trek universe. You also cannot forget the TARDIS, which is Doctor Who's blue phone booth that is capable of traveling through time, space, and alternate universes and dimensions. Now, we can discuss why this interpretation is so influential in popular culture. The many worlds interpretation is so influential in science fiction because it lays a foundation for endless creativity as far as physical possibilities go. It allows writers to imagine the possibilities of parallel universes and the possibilities that could have come with events taking place in a different way. This concludes our presentation. Thank you.